My new boss, Karen, thought she could steamroll our team with her absurd rules, but she had no idea her own orders would be the rope that hanged her career. I'm Jamie, a 29-year-old project coordinator at a mid-sized marketing firm, where my team of 5 had been churning out killer campaigns for years, earning client praise and a tight-knit vibe. Then Karen swooped in as our director, a clipboard-wielding control freak who seemed to think her MBA gave her divine authority. From day one, she strutted into our open-plan office, her heels clacking like a metronome, and declared our casual, creative workflow unprofessional. She slapped us with a 20-page policy manual overnight, mandatory 8 a.m. meetings, no personal items on desks, and, worst of all, a ban on remote work despite our proven track record. Her smug grin as she handed out the manual screamed, "I'm in charge now." My co-worker Sarah whispered, "Is this woman for real?" as we skimmed rules that read like a prison handbook. I felt my stomach knot. Our team thrived on flexibility, and clients loved our results, not our desk decor. But Karen wasn't done. She singled me out in her first meeting, pointing at my desk's tiny cactus and saying, "Jamie, this clutter's a distraction. Remove it by noon, or I'll write you up." The room went silent, my face burning as she smirked, daring me to push back. I complied, tucking the cactus into my bag. But the humiliation stung. Over the next week, her rules got dumber. No coffee at desks, spill risk, mandatory dress code, ties for men, skirts for women, and a demand to CC her on every email, even internal notes. Our productivity tanked as we drowned in her micromanaging. Sarah got a warning for emailing a client without Karen's approval, even though the client was thrilled. My buddy Mike, our graphic designer, was forced to redo a pitch deck because Karen insisted on Comic Sans, claiming it was friendlier. We were fuming, but Karen's favorite phrase, "follow my orders or find another job," kept us in line. Then came the breaking point. Karen announced a new rule. All project updates had to be submitted as handwritten reports, daily, on her desk by 5 p.m., because digital records are unreliable. My jaw dropped. We managed 30-plus campaigns. Handwriting updates was a time suck straight out of the 1800s. Sarah muttered, "She's trying to sabotage us." That's when the light bulb went off. Karen wanted compliance? We'd give her exactly that, maliciously. At our next team huddle, hidden in the break room, we hatched a plan. We'd follow her rules to the letter, but in a way that'd expose her incompetence. I started by handwriting my reports in the sloppiest scrawl I could manage, still legible but a nightmare to read. Mike used Comic Sans for every client-facing document, even when clients begged for professionalism. Sarah CC'd Karen on every email, including 50 daily internal threads about font sizes and coffee runs. By day 3, Karen's inbox was a war zone, and her desk was buried under stacks of barely readable reports. She looked frazzled, snapping at us to organize better. But we just smiled and said, "We're following your rules, ma'am." Clients started complaining about delayed deliverables and unprofessional fonts, and Karen's name was on every email chain. I could see her unraveling, her perfect ponytail fraying as she tried to keep up. Then, during a big client presentation, Mike accidentally projected a Comic Sans deck per Karen's orders, and the client, a Fortune 500 exec, laughed out loud before storming out. Karen's face turned beet red, and she hissed at me. "Fix this, Jamie!" I shrugged. "I'm just following your policy." That night I overheard her on the phone, panicking to HR about team insubordination. I knew we had her on the ropes, but the real test was coming. Our biggest campaign, a $200,000 contract, was due in 2 days, and Karen's rules were choking our progress. If we kept complying, the project would crash, and she'd take the fall. As I stacked another illegible report on her desk, my heart raced. The client deadline loomed, and Karen was about to learn what happens when you demand blind obedience from a team that knows better. The clock was ticking on our $200,000 campaign, and Karen's ridiculous rules had us teetering on the edge of disaster. But our team was ready to let her own demands bury her. I stood at her desk, dropping another barely legible handwritten report into the teetering pile, my heart pounding with a mix of nerves and glee as she glared at me, her eyes bloodshot from trying to decipher our scrawled updates. "This is unacceptable, Jamie," she snapped. But I just smiled sweetly and said, "I'm following your policy to the letter." Ma'am? Her rules, handwritten reports, Comic Sans decks, and an inbox flooded with CC'd emails had turned her office into a chaotic shrine to her own incompetence. Sarah, Mike, and the rest of the team were in on the plan, each of us playing our part with precision. Sarah sent 73 emails in one day, all CCing Karen, including one about where to order pens. Mike churned out client mock-ups in Comic Sans so garish they looked like a middle school project. And when clients complained, he'd reply, "Per our director's orders." I made sure every report I wrote was technically compliant, but so messy it'd take Karen hours to untangle. By day 4, her desk was a paper avalanche, and her inbox had crashed twice. Clients were livid, flooding our team with calls about delayed deliverables and unprofessional materials, and Karen's name was tied to every failure. The Fortune 500 client from the disastrous presentation emailed our CEO directly, demanding an explanation for the circus font deck. Karen tried to pin it on us, storming into our team meeting and yelling, "You're sabotaging me!" But Sarah, cool as ice, held up the policy manual and said, "We're just doing what you ordered." The room stifled laughs as Karen's face twitched, her authority crumbling. That's when I upped the ante. I knew our big campaign deadline was our chance to seal her fate. I spent late nights, off the clock, so Karen couldn't claim credit, coordinating with the team to prepare a backup version of the campaign. A polished, professional deliverable in our usual style, ready to go if needed. Meanwhile, we kept feeding Karen the Comic Sans monstrosity she'd demanded. The day before the deadline, she called an emergency meeting, her voice shrill as she demanded we fix the campaign. I played dumb, handing her another illegible report and saying, "But we followed your font and handwriting rules." The team nodded solemnly, and Karen's hands shook as she realized the client presentation was hours away. That afternoon, the CEO, Mr. Patel, showed up unexpectedly, summoned by the client's complaints. Karen tried to spin a story about team errors, but Mike casually pulled up the email chain where she'd mandated Comic Sans. Sarah chimed in, showing him the policy manual, highlighting the handwritten report rule. I handed over a folder of client complaints, all tied to Karen's decisions. Mr. Patel's face darkened as he turned to her. "You approved this?" he asked, holding up a Comic Sans slide. Karen stammered, "It's friendlier." But the room erupted in snickers. The next morning, as the client arrived, we executed our final move. I accidentally sent the professional backup campaign to the client from my account, bypassing Karen's approval. They loved it, praising its clarity and style. When Mr. Patel asked who prepared it, I stepped forward, explaining how the team had worked around Karen's rules to save the account. Karen's jaw dropped, her career unraveling in real time. By noon, HR called her in. We later heard she was demoted to a junior role, her policy manual scrapped, and the team's old workflow restored. The office buzzed with relief, our cactus plants and coffee mugs back on our desks like badges of victory. Standing in our break room, sipping coffee with Sarah and Mike, I felt a rush of pride. We'd turned Karen's own rules against her, proving that blind obedience can be a weapon. Our campaign landed the client's renewal, and Mr. Patel gave us all bonuses for creative problem-solving. Karen's smug reign was over, and we'd done it without breaking a single rule. What would you have done? Share your own malicious compliance stories in the comments below.